Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another animation analysis video. If my voice sounds a little bit funny, it's because I'm recording this video after just waking up this time around. So your boy's got that sweet, low, dulcet tones. But today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Dokkan Fest YAMCHA. That is right. I never thought I would be saying that, to be honest with you, but here we are, and I gotta be honest with you, I am pretty excited for this video. So before we get into it, of course, if you do enjoy, don't forget to do all that funny YouTube stuff and like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. And of course, it helps the channel grow. As well, keep in mind, I am not a professional. I am absolutely not a professional animator or anything like that. I just love Dokkan Battle. I watch Dokkan animations all the time. I interact with all the assets. So I think that I have a little bit of knowledge up in the think tank. But of course, you know, I just do this sort of thing for fun. But speaking of fun, these animations are actually really fun. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here for today. Of course, as per usual, we'll watch through them one time. We'll talk about the Yajirobe as well, because obviously he's also in here. This is the unfeatured card that is going to be on the banner with the brand new YAMCHA. And I gotta say, Yajirobe, obviously with this part, could maybe use a little bit of work. But his animations, too, are really, really good. Like, I'm shocked how good these look, to be honest with you. I think they look really, really nice. He's also super broken, which is pretty funny too. But YAMCHA himself, bro, oh man, I don't know what they were cooking in the studio with this one, bro, but his animations are so good. Like, they're not even anything too crazy in terms of like the spectacle at play here. Like, you know, it's not, you know, it's like early Dragon Ball Z, so it's not like these crazy wild attacks with like these super insane forms, but the animations are just so clean, so fluid, so nice to look at. Like, these absolutely knock out of the park just a bunch of the more recent units that we have gotten in Dokkan. Like, a YAMCHA fan absolutely was in charge of making these assets, because these are so much better than the last couple of monthly Dokkan Fests we've gotten, for sure. Like, these absolutely knock those out of the park in terms of quality. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're cooking with and what Bandai was cooking with in the kitchen here, because, oh man, these are really, really good. So, first of all, for Yajirobe, I really like this little introduction part. Obviously, this isn't actually an intro animation, but this is more so just like, you know, the start of the super attack. And I really, really like this, actually. This is very Dragon Ball-esque, right? With him scooting around, you know, going from rock to rock, right? I really, really like this with him peeking his head out. I think another thing that they did really well with this essay is that they actually captured his likeness really well, which I know is kind of weird to say. Like, yeah, no doubt they captured it really well. But Yajirobe is like one of the only Dragon Ball characters that has a face like this. I don't know why. He is so like unique in that regard, but I feel like he's one of the only people that I look at and I'm like, yeah, he do be looking a little bit different from the rest of the crowd, which obviously isn't a bad thing, but I think they do a great job capturing his likeness here, and I absolutely love, love, love the sort of look that they gave this guy. So obviously with him peeking around the rocks, that looks good. I like the little bit of the black outlines that they've done. Even the movement, I think, looks really good on him, right, for this whole sequence. Like, obviously with him shuffling his legs, I think they did a really good job actually like emulating that. And I think when they have him go over, right, and he just disappears, and then obviously you kind of see his hand go there and he peeks his head out, it's perfect, right? Because it's supposed to be kind of comical, right? And he's just like, oh, you know, peeking over just to see, right? I think that they did a very, very good job with this sequence for sure. And then, of course, we have him move away. All the assets look so nice, by the way. This section with the running, I will say, I think the running looks pretty good, and the dust cloud looks very nice. It's just his hair that I think looks a little bit weird. I'm pretty sure that that's how it just looks in the actual anime, right? Like, I'm willing to bet that the reason why they animated it this way is because, you know, that's just how it looks in the anime. Unfortunately, I don't have the side-by-side comparison right away, but that looks like one of those things. They're probably just taking it right out of the source material. But the running looks good. Otherwise, I definitely like that. And it's nice, too, that they have the little detail of the sword kind of shaken in the background as he runs. Obviously, you know, he's not going to be keeping it straight the whole time. So it's nice that they bothered to animate that properly with him actually. Oh, hi. That kind of screwed us over there, but it's okay. We can see it from here now, right? They obviously animated the sword moving like that because, of course, you know, it wouldn't be standing still when he's running. So that's cool. I really, really like that little attention to detail there. Of course, we move to the card art, which is really great, by the way. Definitely like that one for sure. We have this shot now, which is really, really good. Obviously, we have the blue anime speed lines. We have Yajirobe speeding through the sky here. This whole sequence just looks very, very nice. And then, unfortunately, funny enemy sprite, right? I don't know how else they would have done this because, of course, this section is supposed to be him cutting off Vegeta's tail. Oops, I just almost punched over the water on my desk. Hydrate or dihydrate, baby. So I'm not exactly sure how else they would have done this sequence, right? Like, I'm not sure how else they would have gone about it besides him just attacking the enemy sprite like this. But it is a little bit weird because, obviously, he basically just slides into the enemy sprite like this, right? I do like this little impact frame of the cut. That is very nice. And then obviously having him go through. I think Yajirobe himself in this scene looks just fine, right? Like, I don't even think there's anything, like, that I would change about that, right? I think that he looks just fine. Even if he's literally just like a PNG sliding here, right? Like, I don't even think it needs too much. Funny enough, he does shake a little bit, which is kind of interesting. Oh, his hair is animated a little bit. Okay, I actually didn't even notice that. That's good to see. But yeah, obviously because it's the enemy sprite and like that's the way that Dokkan is built, this scene feels a little bit awkward for sure, but I'm not going to give that one to the animation. I'm giving that one to the stinky sprites. Because obviously if it was made a different way, you know, it would be a lot more sensical in terms of them hitting the enemy. And obviously, because this is going to fit with any enemy in the game, right, they can't make it, I guess, a direct, like, one-to-one with him cutting off the character's tail. But I think this does look pretty good, for sure. Okay, so then obviously the enemy sprite falls to the ground. Again, I'm giving this one as an L to the sprite and not necessarily the actual animation because, like, Stinky Sprite be the Stinky Sprite. Background looks fantastic, though. I gotta say, I think they absolutely nailed the backgrounds. They've been doing really good on the backgrounds. Like, I feel like that's something that gets really underappreciated when it comes to Dokkan animations. But yeah, the backgrounds in a lot of these recent essays have been really good, especially these ones. But yeah, we have the enemy sprite flop to the ground with the little dust cloud. I think another thing that I have a problem with when it comes to the sprites like this is that the perspective is just so strange, right? Like this perspective, or maybe I guess I should say the scaling is more the correct thing to say. Definitely just does not look correct, right? Like Vegeta looks way too small for how this should look and way too small in comparison to the landscape around him. So that's kind of another L on the sprites part, because obviously the other thing is too, if they make the sprites any bigger, then of course it's gonna look mad ugly. So I'm sure that they don't want to do that either. Okay, so then basically the animation just fades out. I do kind of wish that there was a little bit more like follow-up, because I really like the whole sequence that they have before, like with him running, you know, he's running around, peeking his head out, running forward, and then the slash. But then it kind of feels like lackluster at the end. Like, I feel like there should be something else here. I don't know. Again, maybe it would be a little bit nicer if the enemy was like, oh, you know, or something like that, and it was well animated. But I don't know what else they would have done, because obviously, I mean, in terms of Yajirobe, like, basically after he cuts off the tail, like, that's about it. But overall, right, everything in this animation is really, really nice. Like, I think they absolutely did a great job representing this scene. And I think, as much as I know some people wanted this to be like an LR card or something like that, or like, you know, maybe this would be like some kind of Goku, you know, or Gohan, and then like the Krillin, you know, and then he has like a Yajirobe like unit super attack or something like that, right? Or like Yajirobe is the active skill or something. I still think this is a good representation of the scene, even though it is a little bit unfortunate that that obviously will not become an LR now, because of course, you know, we have this card. Okay, and then Yajirobe actually has an active skill, which is kind of unexpected, if I'm being honest with you. I definitely didn't think that that would be the case. But we have the boy walk forward. Nice pan up. It's kind of interesting the way that they do this one, because obviously instead of actually like panning the camera up all the way as he takes a step forward, they pan it up a little bit and then fade to white to this main screen here. Which I think is kind of an interesting way to do it. But I mean, like, you know, it works, right? They don't have to animate the entire thing of like him panning up over his body, and then they can kind of transition between camera angles fairly easily here. This active skill is a little bit like static, I guess you would say. The movement in it, I think, is alright. Obviously, Yajirobe himself moves standing in this position, right? Obviously holding out the senzu beans, obviously talking in tandem with the voice lines, right? He takes a bean. Where does this bean come from, actually? It kind of just appears in his hand. I guess he's already holding it, right? Because he's not really holding the sword in the frame before this, right? He's actually, you know, kind of like has his fist clenched right there. And then he picks up the bean, or, well, I guess more so like puts it in his hand proper. And then, of course, flicks the bean at the camera. I have to say, I really, really like this, by the way. The bean flying towards the camera, and the perspective is so cool. They've been doing such a good job with perspective stuff lately, I feel like, when it comes to Dokkan. You know, in things like this, right? Where it's not like 3D or anything like that, but it's just a really well done job, excuse me, when it comes to perspective, right? Like, I really like this whole shot of him flicking the senzu bean towards the camera. I think that's super well done. And then, of course, we have him cross his arm. I like this little that they kind of have him do right here, right? Which is kind of just like them stretching the assets a little bit, but I feel like it works well for Yajirobe when he just kind of like, you know, goes, and then he, you know, puts his arms together and gives that little breath, that little puff out his nose, right? All the movement here is very simple. It's very quick. And what I was going to say, too, is when it comes to these unfeatured unit active skills, I love this finisher, by the way. This is a very nice way to sort of give this a little bit of oomph at the end. I like that a lot. With active skills of units that are like your featured, unfeatured units, right? Like that aren't the Dokkan Fest units and are just units that will end up going into the unfeatured pool. Their active skills in terms of like length and animation are usually not that crazy, right? Sometimes they're not even voiced, right? Like we have that one Nappa that has the active skill, but he doesn't even have a voice. So it's nice that Yajirobe even has one, right? Because they definitely didn't even like have to do that, I guess. But it's nice to see that they are giving this card some love, right? And I like this active skill, albeit very, very simple. But again, because it is a featured, unfeatured unit, it makes sense why they did it this way. And I think even though it is super simple, I think it still looks really, really good. Like, I think just the animation overall for Yajirobe is super fluid, which is very nice to see. Okay, let's move on to the boy YAMCHA now. I am so excited to talk about this guy. Hydrate again, baby. So, of course, we have the intro for your boy YAMCHA, which is really cool. I will say, this is one of like 2 scenes that I think I had a problem with, and the rest of it I think is fantastic. As soon as he steps in the frame, right? I don't know what it is about his feet here, but the way that they have his leg move when he comes into frame kind of feels a little bit awkward and stiff. I think it's because they don't have his knee move, right? Like, this looks a little bit more correct because obviously his knee is already bent for this. But with this leg, it almost kind of feels like puppeteering an action figure that's not posed at all, right? Like an action figure that's just straight out of the box with the limbs basically like T-posed, right? Almost kind of feels like they took the leg asset and glued it onto a stick and then moved it around, right, for this beginning animation. This is definitely nitpicking, and I'm sure that most people wouldn't notice this, but as soon as I watched this animation, I was like, ooh, I don't like that leg. It's a little bit weird. But this shot then, obviously panning up from the back is super nice. Of course, then the shot turns to YAMCHA looking toward the side here. And this asset, first of all, is the one from the preview, which is cool to see where that came from. But also, I think that the turn actually does look pretty good, right? It looks a little bit funny in the slow speed, because obviously, you know, we're looking at it in a little bit slower than it's supposed to be viewed in. But especially in the full 10 speed and just in general, I think it looks pretty good. Maybe they could have thrown some extra frames in, like, right at the end. Like, this looks just so goofy, but obviously it's because he's turning, right? It's a matter of perspective. Maybe from, like, here to here, they could have added, like, a couple more, but I think it's fine if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, this looks really nice. YAMCHA here himself looks so good. Like, this design for YAMCHA with the long hair is just so peak, bro. It's so good. But anyway, yeah. So YAMCHA gives his little speech for the intro, and then we actually cut. This is a very interesting cut here, obviously changing perspective pretty drastically, and obviously YAMCHA now being posed up. It's interesting that they don't show him, like, squatting down to take a pose like this, right? I mean, it's okay, right? Because obviously then, because it's just a hard cut, it leaves less, like, poor animation to be at play, and I think this shot looks nice, right? Like, YAMCHA himself looks good, and they show him squatting down a little bit here, which obviously it's just kind of getting more ready into position, and of course the squat looks very nice, right? Nothing too crazy about it. It's just overall very nice, very simple. I'm kind of surprised they gave this guy an intro, if I'm being honest with you, but still pretty cool that they did. Okay, so let's take a look at the super attack. Oh man, this looks so good. By the way, I have to say, before we even, like, look at the actual animation, the style of this is so good. Like, the stylization of this heavy reminds me of this era of Dragon Ball Z, right? Like, I think they absolutely nailed that sort of feeling that you get when you watch the early Saiyan saga. This animation, watching it through, and just, like, looking at the way that the assets are shaded, the way that the background looks, the way that the characters look, all of that type of stuff comes into play really, really well to make these animations feel like they are right out of the anime in terms of the style. Very, very nice. So we have YAMCHA get into a fighting stance. By the way, I have to say, everything in this is fluid, right? There is, like, not a single missing frame, basically, throughout all of this. I talk about all the time in my animation analysis videos. I feel like, oh, they could have added a couple extra frames here, or a couple extra poses there, right? To sort of give it a little bit more fluid movement. None of that here. None of that. YAMCHA is king, bro. I'm telling you. So we have YAMCHA stance up. I do like, by the way, I know this one may be something that you could nitpick as a little bit of, like, a yikers. But not only is it just like he's literally about to charge forward, right? They could have absolutely had him move into this position, right? But I think this also kind of works into the whole thing that's about to happen with how quickly YAMCHA is moving, because he's about to be teleporting around in a second. And speaking of which, we have him fly towards the camera, which I have to say, oh man, this whole sequence here too is just so good. I like the little minimal movement that they have on his body, and obviously his hair moving looks very nice. The obi belt on his waist moving too. The running sequence looks great as well. I like the very zooming background effect that they have on this too, right? Looks great. Him actually running looks super solid. It looks very like how a character would run, right? We have him fly towards the enemy here with this smaller sprite, right? We have him stop dead in his tracks, right? Which makes sense because obviously, you know, he's moving so quickly. Then we have him move forward to throw the punch, which looks really good. And it's not even really any asset stretching here. Maybe a little bit on his body, but you can see his arm is actually an independent asset that's moving, which is cool. And the punch is thrown super quickly, right, in the way that it ends up looking really, really nice. You have this little effect here too on the enemy, which of course, you know, just sort of emphasizes the punch again. Pulling the punch back again, we have basically this whole sequence of punches and kicks, which looks really, really good, right? We have these nice effects here, and I love this sequence because this is how you do quick jump cuts, right? When you have these punches that you want to emphasize like this, and you want to do these rapid fire punches and kicks, right? And for animations where you feel like you need to switch your positions quickly, this is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. This looks fantastic. This is exactly how it should look. You have your wind-ups, and then you have your quick pose changes for the punches, right? Perfect. Literally so good. And the kicks, of course, too. Also, by the way, I love the extra little anime speed lines that they added there too, just for a little bit of extraness, I guess, so a little bit of extra oomph, right? Which is nice because obviously this whole sequence could be this sort of far away shot where YAMCHA is kind of like far from the camera and they're using this small sprite, and it would probably feel pretty empty without those speed lines. I'd have to imagine that's probably what the men in the studio were thinking. The boys were like, hey yo dog, this looks a little this looks a little empty, let's fix that, right? And obviously they had these speed lines to sort of fill in the space, which looks good, and obviously it emphasizes the movement too. Very, very good stuff here. Okay, so then obviously, oh man, the sweep of the leg, bro. Oh, I love the close-up shot too. The sweep of the leg, dude, just looks so good, right? This shot starting off with YAMCHA right here, which is nice too, because this frame transitions well into this one, even though obviously this is such a far away shot and then this one is so close up. With them taking the same pose, right, you kind of feel like that they're in a similar position, even though obviously the position of his feet is a little bit different when you go down, right? Funny enough, it's almost like they're opposite. I think this still looks really well because it kind of gives you that illusion like you're looking at the same thing. We have YAMCHA bring his leg around, which you can see the animation on the arm and the leg there, right? It does cut super quickly from him going down, right? But I think this works well because, again, it's how quickly it looks. And in actual practice of full speed, right, it looks very fluid. YAMCHA himself also just looks really nice here. And we have him turn his leg around to hit the enemy. And this whole sequence is just so nice. They do a very good job getting all of the necessary frames in here. The little bit of the motion blur on his legs also looks really nice on his feet too. Obviously getting some of those colors in there too with the motion blur. This whole sequence just looks so nice. And then, of course, we have this nice close-up to his face as well with his hair sort of fluttering around and him grinning. And then gritting his teeth, right? I think that whole sequence there is just so good. It's easily one of the best parts of this. Like, let me show you this in full-time speed just so you can see how good this looks, right? That looks super fluid, right? Like, I watching that, I cannot see a single thing wrong with that, right? Like, it just looks so good. So solid, right? Okay, so then moving past this close-up shot here, which, again, does look very, very nice for sure. And I do like them, like, sort of panning down then to YAMCHA's hand, which obviously, because of course, you know, that's what he's going to attack with next. We have him, psych, he attacks with his leg, yuck, yuck, yuck. We have him reach his arm out, right, and then, of course, bring his arm to the side as he kicks, right, a fantastic expression, by the way, on YAMCHA's face, and he kicks away the enemy sprite, and I love this bit of perspective as well, where we sort of have the leg emphasized, right, because obviously he lifts it up, and then it sort of takes focus in the camera, so you're really like focusing your attention on that, especially since they zoom in on it a little bit, right? And then he kicks him off screen, which is just such a sick way to do it, right? And then obviously you really feel like that this is a whole like three-dimensional space almost by them doing it like this too. We have YAMCHA have a very nice little end part here where his hair sort of like kind of fades down a little, or not fades, but how would I explain this? Just like sort of settles, I guess, would be the best way to put it after that attack, right? And his whole body sort of has a little bit of movement to it too. I think that's very, very nice. Then, of course, we have the teleport away, which isn't really a teleport. It's more like he's just moving this quickly. And it looks good, bro. Like, Dokkan does a pretty good job of when characters move really fast, or they do instant transmission or something like that. But this whole thing right here, right, with Yamcha disappearing just looks so well done, dude. So you have him get a little bit blurry with the motion lines. You have him kind of like turn in and out of reality. And then you have this, which looks so good and also reminds me a lot of OG Dragon Ball with like Jackie Chun at the tournament versus Goku when, you know, he was moving so fast. He made all of those after images type of thing. And this looks so good, right? Like the whole way that this is executed, it's just so perfect for a character moving quickly and teleporting away. And that's not even all we get. We get literally the reverse of that as Yamcha teleports back into reality. It's literally everything I described just backwards, right? And a little bit smaller too, which is impressive that they were able to nail that, right? Looks fantastic, and we have a very crispy, very quick kick, right? You can see Yamcha even moving a little bit, which is so nice, right? Like in this scene, there absolutely doesn't have to be that little bit of movement before the kick. But man, I'm glad that it's there because it just makes these animations feel so much more alive and lifelike, excuse me. And I feel like any lesser animation would have not just put that little bit in there, right? It's like, it's those little things, those little touches that Dokkan does that I really feel like bring animations like this all together for sure. So of course we have this kick up against the Cybermen, and I really like the effect that they used here. Looks good. Obviously Yamcha's leg also actually moves here too, which is very nice. We have the enemy sprite sort of fly away, and we have Yamcha change poses quickly and fly up towards the sky again. Oh my gosh, dude. It's so good. Look at this, right? So obviously he goes to fly up, and then they instantly have him teleport away. I think they nailed how that looks, right? They did such a good job on that sequence for sure. Because it's like one of those things where it's like, it's sort of a fake out, right? You're like, oh, they're going to fly up and follow them. But no, they just move so quickly that they teleport up. And then, of course, they teleport above them, right? And again, similar thing here. It is basically just a reverse version of what we saw before. They don't use that sort of Dragon Ball-esque frame that I was talking about here, but I think this still looks just fine, obviously. And you're not really like focusing on that as much because obviously with this top-down perspective, I feel like you're kind of looking at everything a little bit more. This kind of is like, you know, you're in a hot air balloon or something looking down. That's kind of like the feeling that I get from this. But yeah, we have Yamcha up in the sky. That little bit of minimal movement on him too is very much so appreciated. I like that a lot. And then, of course, we have him slam down into the enemy sprite after we get the card art, which is really nice, by the way. Definitely like the way that that turned out. And, woo! He doesn't actually slam into the enemy sprite. I forgot. The Kamehameha is next. This is so good. So, just this shot of Yamcha alone is really nice, right? Like, they did a good job animating this. This looks perfectly like Yamcha. The style is very nice. But then, I went crazy when I saw this part. We have the Kamehameha form in his hands, and the entire scene turns blue, right? The shading, the coloring, looks really good. I like this a lot. You have Yamcha bring his arms back, his hair fluttering a little bit in the wind. And then, of course, he launches the Kamehameha forward. In full motion, this looks pretty good. It does look a little bit janky here in the slow-mo, because, like, you can see, look at that. It's kind of weird how it almost, like, moves in his hands. But, I mean, I guess that would be sort of how it would work, right? Because it's obviously sort of, like, hovering there. It almost kind of reminds me of that, like, as seen on TV Magic Ball in the way that it looks. But, yeah. Then, obviously, we have a cut towards his hands, because then, obviously, they sort of focus in on the Kamehameha and his hands pointed forward. I thought he had a tail there, but that's just his leg. It's just a very weird like pose that he's in. But yeah, then obviously we have the Kamehameha fire forward, and I gotta say, I love the way that the Kamehameha looks here. I miss when the Kamehameha was not just a blue streak, right? And it actually feel like, or it actually felt like, excuse me, sorry, again, I just woke up and still a little loopy. I really miss when it actually felt like it was a proper energy ball like this. When it was actually like energy swirling within the attack, right? And I think that they do a very good job of emulating that here. The crash on the ground looks good. I like the little dust and sort of debris effects that they have here, where obviously it's like crashing, breaking the ground there. And that is basically the end of that essay. I guess that means that this would also probably end up being the KO screen with this attacking the ground. And this looks good too. I like the perspective as well, and I love the lighting as it's sort of like brighter here, and then it gets a little bit darker as it comes toward the camera. Super great essay. Literally, bro, like, I don't even think there's a problem with it. Hydrate or Dihydrate, number 3. But it's so good. So let's take a look at the active skill now. This is a very nice active skill as well. YAMCHA raising his hand up to start off, right? Again, that very nice minimal movement that you like to see. It's so minimal there. It wasn't even showing up when I was doing the frame by frame. Hold on, let me go back here. Yeah, you can see right there, he's sort of raising his hand up a little bit before it becomes to a solid position. And then we have the Spirit Ball form in his hand. I believe that's what this is called, right? Is there another? I'm pretty sure that's the name of the attack. I don't know. Correct me in the comments. It's totally alright if you do. Again, I just woke up, so it might be a little bit fuzzy. But the effects on the attack are, oh my gosh, dude. Look at the electricity effects on that. Holy cow. That is so good, dude. They absolutely nailed the way that this attack looks in the anime. It looks so nice with the electricity there, right, kind of flowing around it. And I like the way that the ball grows, too. It feels a lot more natural, and it's a lot better. I know it's kind of funny because it is basically just a circle, but I feel like the more generic sort of key circle attacks that they use do not look as good as this one does for sure. I like the little lines on the edges as well. And of course, the scene becomes clouded in red. I really, really like this background. It's super solid for sure. The electricity inside the attack is super nice. As well, I also love YAMCHA sort of struggling here a little bit. Like, even though it's hard to see because obviously the attack kind of blocks it at some points, you can see that YAMCHA is shaking a little bit in the background, which is very nice. Like, they definitely could have just hid that there because obviously you literally can't even see YAMCHA besides when it just fades out for a moment like that, right? So the ball flies up towards the sky, and I think all the movement here is actually very nice, right? Like, again, this is one of those things where when we're looking at this in the slow-mo, it looks a little bit choppy, right? But if we look at this in the full motion, right? Bam. Look at how smooth that looks, dude. Oh, that is a little bit weird, seeing that go from normal colors to yellow for a moment there. But look how smooth this looks with his arm movement, right? That looks perfect, right? It just looks so fluid and so nice, right? They really popped off with this essay, I'm telling you, bro. And then, of course, with this whole thing, right? We have him bring his hand down. The Spirit Ball comes into frame once again. I will say, this could have maybe used a little bit more of a transition going from YAMCHA to Ultimate Hearts YAMCHA. With the yellow surrounding him. I really like this once it's obviously here, but I kind of wish they would have, like, faded the asset in. So then that way it would have been a little bit more of a natural transition, right? Or, you know, maybe it like flashes onto him or something like that. It is kind of weird that it just goes like that. I'm assuming the reason why they did that is because since this asset is constantly moving, they had to just basically introduce it in one of these frames and then just call it a day, right? Since obviously everything is moving here, right? Like his Obi belt is still consistently moving, even though his hands are still in place, right? I'm assuming that's probably why, because, you know, they didn't know how to do it maybe with it like fading in or, you know, flashing in, something like that. I could be wrong on that, absolutely, but it is still a little bit jarring going from one to the other. But once the shading is here, I do quite like it. I think they did a very good job. Oh, I accidentally turned captions on. Oops. But yeah. This looks good. Obviously, the ball flying towards the sky. I like the debris, right? Looks pretty good. We have it fly towards the Cybermen and then up to the sky. This section here, I like the way that the ball looks too. You can see these like really cool dust cloud effects here in front of the ball, which is nice. And obviously, the dust sort of follows the ball as well, which is really cool. The Cybermen does get out of the way for the attack as it sort of flies away. However, of course, as we know how this attack works, he moves it into place, right? Which this is pretty cool with this like cut back and forth, right? Cutting back to YAMCHA, obviously moving the ball around, but they keep the background of YAMCHA this like crazy psychedelic color, right? And then they cut back and the background is just normal for the enemy. I like these motion lines here. These are very cool, obviously focusing from where the ball starts, kind of keeping your attention to that, and then as it flies above the enemy, right? Again, even though this ball is basically just gray, I like the little bit of outline. It makes it feel a little bit more unique, and definitely gives it a little bit more of a unique feel than, again, just like something like the generic Key Blast asset that they used a lot. Then we have this super great shot here of YAMCHA, right? Like basically moving the ball around, right? And the animation here is also just so fluid, dude. Holy cow. Look at this, dude. Even in slow-mo, this looks really good, right? Him, like, twisting his hand, bringing his hand down. As well, one other thing that I wanted to note that I noticed that is something super small but super cool. Once he actually gets his hand down, they actually change the little, like, pressure lines, I guess you would call it, because obviously this is him swinging his hand down to bring the attack down. The little lines on him actually change, which is really cool because they definitely could have just, like, had them shake or something and had him shake. But no, it's really cool to see these little, like, motion lines actually change a little bit on Yamcha, which is cool. And throughout this, his obi belt and his hair moves the entire time, which is so nice because I feel like they definitely, like, could have skipped that step, but I'm glad that they didn't, right? And the background also looks really fantastic. But yeah, we have the ball come down again. Nice little bit of focus with the speed lines here. We have it come down and hit the enemy sprite in a flash of white. I love this little bit of smoke effect on this. Also, very Dragon Ball-esque text effect there with the way that the font is. We have the smoke, though. Love the way that this looks. And then transitioning to here, too. This just looks so sick, dude. Like, they absolutely nailed the way that this attack looks, I think. Especially with this right here, like the anime, like the anime, of course. Like the way that it's animated, excuse me. I really can't film these videos after I wake up. I'm sorry. But it looks really, really nice with the sort of effects coming off of it, right? This looks so strange, too. This almost looks like the world is being, like, zipped. Like Zipper Man is about Zipper Man. Sticky fingers is like unzipping the world here. But yeah, the flash of white here, and then of course this goes well into the explosion. I think that's a very well used flash of white there, because a lot of the time with explosions like this, like in anime and movie and stuff, right, they have it like sort of flash as it is just about to hit the ground, and then they show you the actual explosion, which the explosion looks good, right? I love the way that it sort of flows out. It looks really, really good there. And I think the dust and debris looks good. Obviously, the dust kind of covering the camera looks good because obviously it's in front of everything and you can clearly see that. The rocks breaking apart look cool because obviously they're sort of trapped in the explosion effect. It also looks nice because obviously this is like actually exploding and sort of decimating at the bottom there. All of it looks really good, right? You even have these little black lines to sort of emphasize this, and the background looks super sick too, as well as the ground. Okay. That's all of Yamcha's animations, ladies and gentlemen, as well as the boy Yajirobe. Wow. These are really good. These are really good animations. Like, fiddle me impressed. Absolutely, right? I was saying when I first saw the little, like, preview for the Dokkan Fest for Yamcha, I was like, wow, that asset looks so good. It gives me hope for these because I feel like the last couple of monthly Dokkan Fests have just been so lackluster in my opinion. Like, Bardock was kind of not it, right? The Goku from the Tournament of Power movie, holy cow, could you imagine? That would be a crazy what if from the Path to Power movie, right? Even some of the animations that we got from some of the LRs, I feel like could have been even more, right? But, man, especially in terms of the monthly Dokkan Fest, though, like, I feel like it's not really fair to compare these monthly TURs to the Dokkan Fest for sure, or to the Dokkan Fest LRs, I should say. I think that this guy absolutely blows the last few of the monthly Dokkan Fest out of the water in terms of just the fluidity, right? Like, again, like I said in the beginning of the video, it's nothing insane. Like, it's no insane spectacle to look at these, right? Like, you're not looking at these and going like, whoa, look at those crazy attacks. Look at that going crazy. But you're looking at this and going, wow, that is a really nice looking animation, a really fluid looking animation. And this is all I can ask for when it comes to Dokkan animations. Like, this is even more than I can ask for, right? I feel like in a lot of my animation analysis videos lately, I've been sort of complaining about the animations and being like, oh, I'm not satisfied with this, and I'm not satisfied with this, and all this sort of thing, right? This animation, I am satisfied with. I love it. I really, really like this. It's so good. It gives me hope for more Dokkan Fests in the future that they can do it like this. This is the template that they need to look to for making new Dokkan animations, right? It's crazy that this man is better than a ton of the units that we've gotten in 2022 in the animation department. I am very happy about it. When I eventually do my top 5 best of the year, spoiler alert, this guy is absolutely on it, right? I don't think there's any contest on that front. He is absolutely going to be on the list for sure. He is just, oh, so good. Even Yajirobe's animations, I feel like, are better than some of the Dokkan Fest stuff that we've gotten this year. It's just really solid stuff, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. Of course, I always love hearing your thoughts. YAMCHA, my boy, I can't believe the YAMCHA Dokkan Fest is what has really kicked it up a notch from, man, bro. Somebody at Akatsuki is a YAMCHA fanboy. Somebody at Akatsuki loves this man, and I am absolutely here for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.